Good evening, Chris. Thanks, my friend.
You bet.
And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Steel comes from iron. Iron comes from iron ore. And iron ore you dig out of the ground. The largest known but untapped iron ore deposit in the whole world is this one. It's in the nation of Guinea. Guinea is a country in West Africa, sort of surrounds Sierra Leone. It borders Liberia. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, Guinea is. And that is a stark thing when you have some of the most impressive untapped natural resources in the world. But Guinea got independence from France in 1958, and then they started essentially a long cycle of suffering under dictators who ruled for life and who took a long time to die. Their first leader took power upon independence in 1958. He stayed in power from 1958 until he died in 1984. 26 years later. Then as soon as they were rid of him, they got another dictator in 1984, and he held on for 24 years until he died too in 2008. But for all the problems that Guinea has had as a country, for all that, all the challenges it has struggled through, Guinea's natural resources have not really been a help thus far. Yes, they do have the world's largest untapped deposits of iron ore, but that has not necessarily turned out to be a good thing for them. Mostly what it has turned out to be for them is a scandal and a crime. And now that part of it is becoming part of our presidential politics here in America. Reporter Jesse Drucker has a remarkable piece that just posted this afternoon in the New York Times. It's about more potentially criminal trailing ends that seem to have followed our new first family into their new lives in the White House. And although a lot of that story is about this remote West African country of Guinea, my favorite part of the story actually takes place in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Jacksonville, Florida airport. Just a few years ago, 2013, the widow of one of the past dictators of Guinea, the widow of the dictator who died in 2008, she became a cooperating witness for the FBI. And one day in the spring of 2013, she put on a wire. The FBI wired her up so they could surveil and tape her conversation. And she went to the Jacksonville airport, and she had a meeting at a diner at the Jacksonville airport with a representative from a large mining company with interests in her home country and in that big iron ore deposit. In 2008, Guinea had awarded to this company the exploration rights to half of that gigantic deposit of iron ore. It was a little bit of an unusual deal at the time because the Ghanaian government had previously awarded all of the rights for that mine to a totally different company. But then, inexplicably, a few years later, they just sort of changed their mind and decided that half the rights would now go to this other country. It appeared at the time to be sort of a strange deal. But now we know why it seemed weird. It's because it was weird. The Ghanaian government now says that that strange deal happened, that the awarding of half the rights to that mine happened, according to the Ghanaian government, because of a huge bribe paid by the company who got the mining rights. They say the company that got the rights to half of that iron ore deposit, they say that company paid Mrs. Dictator $8 million in exchange for them getting those rights. Now, the FBI eventually got involved in investigating that bribe. And at that airport diner in Jacksonville in 2013, they set up Mrs. Dictator to wear a wire while she met with a representative of that mining company. And while she was meeting with that guy from the mining company, he told her in that conversation that she should destroy all the paperwork that she had that documented anything to do with the bribe. And she was wired when he told her that. She was a cooperating witness. And so the FBI got all of his instructions to her about that on tape. And they nailed him. They nailed this guy from the mining company. Charged, pled guilty, prison time. And the company has since tried to say, oh, that guy was just a rogue actor. He wasn't speaking on our behalf. We don't know anything about what he was talking about. Nothing to do with us. But that same mining company is also alleged by the FBI to have paid another large bribe to another official in the Ghanaian government the following year. And the reason we know that is because of a trial that's happening right now this week in New York City. The former mining minister of Guinea is on trial in New York right now. And the FBI alleges in documents that have been made public in conjunction with this trial, which have now been reported on by the New York Times, the FBI alleges that this mining company was involved in arranging the bribery. So there was the bribe paid to Mrs. Dictator. Within 1 year of that, another bribe paid to another Ghanaian government official related to this iron ore mine. Now, why is this trial happening in Manhattan? One nice thing about being the banking capital of the world is that financial crimes all over the world can often technically be charged in New York if prosecutors want to charge them there, because more often than not, anytime significant amounts of money move around anywhere in the world, that money in some way will touch a New York bank as part of the transit of funds. That also means when it comes to crimes like bribing government officials in other countries, even when the people involved are not Americans, the FBI is often on it. Even when it is not Americans involved, even when the bribery takes place far away. If you are involved in financial fraud or corruption of any significant scale, no matter where you are in the world, if the banking system is used at all in your fraud, your corruption, your bribery, it is likely that the FBI is on it. And you may find yourself on trial in the Southern District of New York. And in this case, they really did, wire Mrs. Dictator at the Jacksonville airport for what that guy from the mining company otherwise thought was an innocuous meeting in a foreign country. But that ubiquitous presence of the FBI amid that kind of financial crime, that means if you are an American business, it's pretty easy to get caught if what you do wrong is that you end up doing business with corrupt people overseas. If you end up doing business with other companies, with other people who pay bribes overseas, if you do business with otherwise corrupt businesses who launder money or finance illegal activities or whatever it is, whether or not you yourself are crooked, American firms and individuals are not allowed to do business with crooked businesses overseas. That's illegal under our own laws. That's illegal under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. You may never bribe anybody, but if you're doing business with somebody who's been paying bribes overseas, you're going to get nailed. People get caught for that. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. It's a big deal. And frankly, it follows the Trump Organization around because of deals like their now abandoned project in the capital city of Azerbaijan, which was recently reported out in exquisite detail by Adam Davidson at The New Yorker. In that Azerbaijan project, the problem for the Trump Organization is that they partnered with the family of a notoriously corrupt government official who, for good measure, has financial ties to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Well, thanks to this new reporting from the New York Times and also from Bloomberg News today, we now know that the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act may not just be following the Trump Organization around deals like its abandoned hotel project in Azerbaijan. We now know that the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act may also be following around Jared Kushner. And that's because as this mining minister from Guinea is on trial right now in New York, with the FBI saying he facilitated bribes paid for by that mining company for them to get rights to that big iron ore deposit in Guinea. At the same time that trial is happening in New York, the New York Times and Bloomberg News are now both reporting that the family who owns that mining company, which has been under FBI investigation in these bribery cases, and which, according to the Times, has also been investigated directly under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, that mining firm is run by the Steinmetz family. And as of tonight, with this new reporting, we now know that the Steinmetz family has also apparently been Jared Kushner's secret financier for over $100 million in very recent New York City real estate purchases. You don't have to be crooked yourself. As an American company, you cannot legally do business with companies abroad and with individual business